And so if you have ever struggled with branding or feel like your online presence or your offline presence doesn't match your business's potential, this episode is packed with actionable insights to help you stand out, attract your ideal client, and build a brand that truly conquers. So in this episode, we're going to talk about branding, mistakes entrepreneurs make, and how to avoid them.
You say it is a full package. You got the visual, you got the verbal, and even how you present yourself. Can you break down for our audience what a fully developed brand really does look like?
Your message equals your $1 million anthem. You don't have a sales problem. You have a message problem. If your words don't captivate, they don't convert. I have helped Grammy-winning artists craft unforgettable songs, and now we help entrepreneurs just like you craft your business messaging that actually sells.
You don't need more hustle. You need the right strategy. I help scale multi-million-dollar companies, and we can show you exactly how to systemize, scale, and dominate the market without drowning in the grind. Welcome to the Conquer Club podcast.
Welcome to the Conquer Club podcast. We are thrilled to have a local in our hometown today, McKenna Delaney. She is building a brand that conquers strategy, visibility, and impact. And Kevin and I mean, this episode, we love when we get to sit with a local gal or man. And McKenna, I remember the first time I met you, I'm like, this girl is spicy. She is a powerhouse. But you just are, and you're everything about you. I mean, look at your background is aesthetically pleasing for sure. And that's what happens with a creative powerhouse in brand and website design. Like I said, you're based here in Nashville, just outside of Nashville, and you're not just a designer, you are a small business. You're a superhero helping entrepreneurs craft brands that aren't just visually stunning, but also you know the whole branding game that actually attracts and converts. And so if you have ever struggled with branding or feel like your online presence or your offline presence doesn't match your business's potential, this episode is packed with actionable insights to help you stand out, attract your ideal client, and build a brand that truly conquers. So in this episode, we're going to talk about branding, mistakes entrepreneurs make, and how to avoid them. So, and why branding is more than just a logo. And I know you'll go into that as well. And just creating a cohesive brand that builds trust, authority, and all that fun stuff. So, welcome to the Not a Stage, but a Virtual Stage podcast. If you're just listening or visually see McKenna, welcome to the Conquer Club podcast.
Whoa, thank you. I'm so grateful to be here.
I always say I need a confetti explosion here.
Yes, we do. We need to have confetti explosion and fireworks. We need the whole shooting match.
Well, here's the thing. Your post editor can put that in.
Let's go.
True.
All right. That's true.
Oh, you're already starting on fire here. Oh my God. Well, McKenna, welcome to the Conquer Club. Branding, as we all know, is such a game changer for all entrepreneurs. Yet so many of us we just get it wrong. We'll just say it like it is. We just get it wrong. What was your aha moment that made you realize you wanted to help businesses build brands that truly do stand out? What's your aha moment?
Ooh, what a lovely question to kick us off. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for having me here. What was my aha moment of deciding that brands was the right direction for me? So the way that it started, it was actually with websites. So my family had a business and I was in school for IT and I built an app. My dad was like, listen, if you can build an app, I bet you can build a website. And he had actually built Dave Ramsey's first website. That's my lifelong claim to fame. And I found out it's actually true. For most of my life, I did not believe that, but he did. I was able to verify it. But anyway, so I built my family a website for their business and fell in love with it. I really didn't understand branding to the degree that I obviously understand it now. But I kind of dove headfirst into owning my own website design business. And what I found is I struggled to book people who did not already have a brand in place. Number one, when I did book them, I wasn't real satisfied with the outcome because I didn't have any control over the actual aesthetics of it, and it never felt aligned. It was kind of like, do you really think your ideal client wants this? So we'll get back to that in a minute. So I would say it probably took me about 8 or 9 months to go, okay, it's time to start offering brand design. And so I really just dove headfirst into a bunch of different courses to really figure out what that meant. I actually spent quite a lot of money to figure out what the term brand strategy means. Fun fact, all it means, let me spoil it for you. It means
What's it mean?
it means that you're designing for your ideal client. Right? You're designing something that they love, not necessarily what you love. Although those can often be aligned, sometimes you're not your ideal client and it's all about, making sure that what you're creating appeals mostly to them. It should still feel aligned for you, but sometimes it doesn't. But I had worked in cosmetics prior to my website design business, and that is all about branding, right? Every single makeup company sells exactly the same products: foundation, concealer, powder, right? They all have different formulations, sure, but we buy from the brands that we feel connected to that represent us best. And I think that was a really good preparation for me to get into the branding aspect. So it's kind of a backwards answer to your question, but that's how I kind of had my aha moment of like, oh, wait.
So you knew then you loved the opportunity to help others, and then you loved how all of it, there's so many moving parts, but how you piece it all together. So you realize, hey, wait a minute here. I've got something here that I really love to do.
Yeah, what I loved about it was, sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say what I loved about it is in my prior job, which I also loved, the cosmetics job, is I was helping women get a makeover, essentially, making them feel confident. Even if you just put one great color lip on somebody, they feel 1,000,000% better. I get to do the same thing here, except for your business, for your livelihood, for your impact on others. And it's such a different magnitude. So that was really the moment that like my business clicked as the right business for me.
Oh, that's what I was going to
awesome.
say. That's what I was going to say, McKenna, is it's what's so cool. And what we always say is your past is preparing you for your present that pours out purpose onto people. And so it's no surprise that you already had an eye for a beauty, really, and things that stand out in that makeup world, hair, makeup, aesthetics, all of that. It and being a creative spirit, we know one another in that, you connect to creative spirits, but I love also that you have the tech brain too, because a lot of people, it's either completely right brained or completely left brained. I'm one of the rare ones. I'm sure you are too, where I'm right smack in the middle. It's not very common, but it's a really great asset. So let's just start with the basics, McKenna.
Yeah.
So what do you think in your experience are the most maybe common branding mistakes that you see entrepreneurs make, and how can they fix them before they hold their own business back? Like, how do you what do you do to help them with their branding mistakes, or what have you seen in your experience?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to what I was just talking about, how your branding appeals to you and not your ideal client. So often when we start our businesses, of course, we want it to represent everything we stand for,
True.
right? It makes all the sense in the world. Like
Right.
I don't hold anybody to account for that. Like it just is what it is. You want a logo that you're like, wow, look at this logo. But at the end of the day, you really need to be appealing to who you're looking to sell to. So my favorite example, when I get asked a question like this, is actually two cosmetics brands. Shocker. I think they do a really great job of, again, selling the same product with the same like USP, but with different branding. I think it really paints the picture well. And like you said, I was kind of prepared for that, right?
Totally.
So the brand Drunk Elephant, and then we have Clarins. Now they're just for two very different people. One is actually very much appeals to Gen Alpha, which is like 10 to 12-year-old girls right now.
Right.
That's Drunk Elephant. And then we have and Gen Z, I would say too. I would say at some point millennials were into it, but we've maybe graduated on at this point. But then you've got Clarins, which is a beautiful, expensive French brand with high quality ingredients, proven products, but they come from a much more elevated and elegant standpoint. Whereas Drunk Elephant is kind of what it sounds like. Like it's just a bunch of bright neon colors with a little elephant as the logo. And half the time the colors don't really even go together all that well, but somehow they make it work and it's beautiful, right? But it's just appealing to two very, very different things. So all that to say, if you fall into one category and your ideal client is in another, you need to figure out how to align that. Yeah. And there are a lot of different ways to go about that, but that's the number one mistake I see people make.
I would agree with you on that. And Kevin, I know you know what Drunk Elephant is. Let's just go ahead and say it. We're having a little girl talk here, and Kevin's in here.
Well, listen,
but I know you know this.
I do.
Because why do you know that, babe?
Because I am a girl dad, and I have been shopping and buying, especially during Christmas. It's on all the girls' Christmas list for years, Drunk Elephant. So the first year I'm like, what are we doing here? And I realized it's not what it says it is totally.
I think they were the bronzer drops or something. That was like the first big thing. So that totally, it makes a lot of sense, especially like you said, you got to know who your avatar is. Who are you talking to, people?
Yes. Well, and I think so often we tend to think of like our ideal client, our avatar, our best client, like it's anyone who can pay us, right? But that's so wrong. That's such the wrong approach. Like another example I love to give is like for me, my branding is very feminine. The flowers behind me might have given it away, but and my pink shirt, I don't know. No. I'm trying to be on brand. Hey. Shocker. Yeah. But I do still work with men, and you might think to yourself, like, is some man gonna land on your website with all your flowers? Well, no. My ideal client avatar is typically the wife. The wife knows me and will usually recommend that her husband work with me, and that's how I get most of my male clients. So, and it works out great for me. I know the person ahead of time, essentially, usually. And so that's like, those are the things that are, you have to decide if that's the avenue you want to go, right? If I wanted to get into the world of working with tradesmen and landscapers and all that, probably my branding's not going to work for that, right?
Unless you're just talking about the flower beds, possibly.
Yeah, maybe one day, maybe.
That's good. That's good, Tom. That's good. Well, McKenna, so a lot of people think that branding is just about a logo, which we know that's not true. You say it is a full package. You got the visual, you got the verbal, and even how you present yourself. Can you break down for our audience what a fully developed brand really does look like? What's it look like?
Absolutely. So that is a very, very wide question. So we're going to narrow on a couple pieces of it. But of course, there's your designed visual identity, right? Your logo, your fonts, your colors, your brand patterns, your icons, kind of the whole ecosystem that goes with your actual online identity. Now, if you fall into the coaching space or other similar like one-on-one service provider spaces, kind of like myself, like you're very much a part of your brand. You are typically a walking example of your brand, and you represent your brand in everything and in every way that you interact with the outside world, right?
Right.
And so to me, that includes everything. That includes how you dress at all times. That includes how you interact with other people, how you look on stage, right? If you're on stage, you should be matching your brand. You should look like your business. You should look like the personification
Good.
of who you
That's
are.
good.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, that's kind of what a comprehensive brand looks like. I mean, I can get into the specifics of like you should have all of your Canva PDFs or social media templates, all that fun stuff, but it really comes down to how you interact with and are perceived by the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that about really personal branding. We live in a world that we are truly walking billboards. Gone are the commercials, the standard, channels and that sort of thing, but we are the commercial. And a lot of people, but I always say it's true to your identity, to your branding. And that's what I love about it. I know we have somebody that we partner with, and they were talking about how some guy had said, I mean, I do real estate, but I'm tatted up and I have earrings, I'm pierced, and who's going to want to hear from me? I don't have the suit and tie on. And he was like, dude, the people who want to hear from you, stay true to who you are, and that is your brand. If you don't wear a suit and tie ever, don't put one on, because that's not who you are. So
Right.
the identity that God has put in each of us, we don't have to change it. We just have to uh, use somebody like you and your branding and your business to extract that in the most beautiful or handsome way. So talking about consistency from logos to websites and even down to the personal style we talked about just now, why do you think it's so important that entrepreneurs, the branding across all platforms, be the same, like
Yeah.
cohesively across all platforms?
Yeah, it's super important to be cohesive across all platforms because of how often someone needs to interact with your brand before they're going to make a purchase, right? At the end of the
Yes.
day, we're looking to make impact and we're looking to make money as well. And we need to get somebody to that purchase finish line. And, they like in the old sales books that we're all probably familiar with, they say you need to be hit 7 times in order for somebody to purchase with you. Like, that's just not true anymore, y'all. I think we all know that on this podcast here. But
Right.
I've heard the number 21 thrown out there a lot. I think that's just 7 times 3, but I think it's hundreds of times. I think someone needs to see and interact with you in some capacity hundreds of times now in order to make a purchase, unless it's like a friend in person or something. But our brand is even so granular as to like your profile photo on Facebook. Like, think about all the people who change it once a week. As business owners, we can't do that. We need to build recognition on one solid headshot that we can use over and over and over and
Right.
over again. And so, yeah, I think we just have to remember how often people have to see our touch points, interact with our brand, how it has to be consistently beautiful or handsome or whatever it needs to be, whatever that vibe is that needs to come through. They need to feel welcomed by that brand. They need to feel seen, heard by that brand. They need to recognize that it's for them. There are so many facets that go into that, and it sounds crazy and scary, and it is to some degree, but it's also doable. It's very doable.
Yeah.
That's great in regards to the platform. I like, how we get so distracted by so many things, but if we just stay focused on the platform, that's great insight. So, well, feeding right on into that, a lot of us, or a lot of the entrepreneurs, we tend to get stuck designing our brand based on what we personally like rather than what attracts their ideal client or their avatar. How can a business owner shift their mindset to build a brand that speaks to their audience instead? What are some pieces of advice you can share with our listeners?
Great question. So the first thing that I have my clients do is go through a branding questionnaire. One of my favorite questions to ask my client that I ask my clients is, where does your ideal client live, shop, eat, and play? Right? What and so often they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, you do know though. Like, where are they hanging out? You know, and I do work with a lot of people locally, like you guys said. We're all here in the Nashville area, and I'll name specific restaurants and be like, okay, is she at this one or this one?
That's good.
Is she at Lululemon or is she buying the dupes on Amazon? Like this is very indicative of who we're marketing toward, right? And so often like people have no concept of what their ideal client is, and I help them go through that as best as we can. But it's all just about customer research. It's about talking to your favorite people. I mean, I've obviously done this for my business to figure out, you know, who I wanted to work with most. But in the very beginning, like one of the things I realized is I loved like a certain set of clients, right? I went through the list and I was like, these are the people I love working with. And I asked myself, like, what are their commonalities? Where did I find them? How did they find me? And one of the biggest things that I realized is they were all doing local networking. So I am pretty into the local networking here in Nashville, you could say. I know a lot of people and a lot of networking groups. But that was like their commonalities. Like they're these small businesses. They're not yet, you know, these online entrepreneurs. They're still doing things belly to belly in person. And that was really who I enjoyed working with. So I started kind of honing in on that, and I put all my marketing efforts into that for the first 3.5 years of business. So yeah, it's all about just researching and again going like the actionable step here is figure out who your ideal client is, look at the people who you've worked with, and then what are the common threads. It doesn't mean that they're all women in their 30s. It's what are their personality traits that are the common threads? What are the problems that they're facing that are the common threads? What you know, all those fun things and pain points and all that is where you can kind of figure all that out.
It's so true.
Go
Sorry,
ahead,
Tom. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I love how you go back to business 101. That is said, you use the terminology belly to belly or in person. Yeah. So we have slowly drifted away from that in the business world. So I love to hear that, especially from someone of your age, that you're getting just as much out of it as, say, your parents' age. So that's a big plus. The other is finding out, what your buyer's interest is. So that's big, because you don't want to build a brand if I use example of boating. If someone doesn't ever like to go to the lake, it doesn't make any sense at all to go that far on the spectrum. But that's very, very interesting, and it's very refreshing to hear.
Yep. I'll throw this in here real quick. My dad is actually the chamber ambassador of the year in our town.
There you go.
So,
I mean, that's perfect. Where I
get it from.
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe when we actually met, we didn't even meet through a local thing. I met you in Florida.
Yeah.
Right? At a big event. And then we connected here, literally right down the road from one another. So both of those, right? Those can be married with belly to belly local, and then also, you know, attending different events. And we're in both of those mindsets as well. But like Kev said, I think, you know, after COVID and all of that, people really miss people, right? And I always say we're called to community. We really do want to commune in unity with like-minded people. And like you said, McKenna, the importance of, just as we know, communication is the transference of energy. And so sometimes, you know, through a screen like this, it's a little bit more challenging to feel. It can be done. We do it all the time in our business, but there can be that transference of energy, like, man, I just want to hug you, you know, or shake your hand. And, but you developing the websites that you do and creating spaces, really, you're telling a story inside of a website, right? And you said it earlier, we as business owners, we want to make impact and income. And it's okay, friends, right? That's what we're all doing every day. That's the e-commerce. It's just commerce, it's just business. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Sales is really serving if we look at it from that heart space. So when you have clients come into your world, what do you think is one must have element that every business website needs to build trust and drive sales?
Yes, my favorite question. How did you know?
I don't
We,
know.
I mean, I love this. It is professional branding photography, photos of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, number one thing that people miss on their website. I mean, I have some friends locally that do brand photography, and I am a huge referral source to them because it is so valuable and people don't really know about it ahead of time. Like, I find that they would have never known about brand photography if it weren't for me saying we got to have these beautiful photos of you. Like, it's just not all that common. People think of headshots but not brand
Mm,
photography. But the reason for that is why I find it so valuable is because people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust,
that's right.
right? And how do we build know, like, and trust? We look each other in the eye. Like, there's something human about looking somebody in the eye and knowing that it's going to be a good business deal, or it's not going to be a good business deal, or there's
Yeah.
something in our souls that tell us that. The more I can look in your eye on a website, the better off I know we're going to be. And people miss that all day long.
Oh, that's so true, McKenna. I always say, I say it like this, that we have a solution, and there's a bunch of AI things, and we utilize those, but without the soul inside of the solution, it's dead,
Mm-hmm.
truly, because that the eye is the window of the soul. We have the solution for businesses, for people, and like you said, that's how true businesses are created, through people. And I can't agree more with the photography. We both know Amy, who's amazing. She's done
Mhm.
our pictures since my girls. We have young adult daughters, and she's done ours since our youngest was 4, maybe.
I was say
And
she did
so
our Christmas
for
pictures one
for
time.
years before she went into
Tiny.
branding photography. But
Yeah.
you're right, it's so important. It's so interesting that people don't know how to do it, and something that we also help businesses with, just in the messaging. You have We have a color palette that's already made up in Canva, with the fonts, the colors, the hex codes, all of that can literally be sent, and your branding is consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And that is huge. And I know when you said what your dad does, I believe when I met you first, somebody said you were like the mayor of something. I don't know, some sort of the mayor of the business world, the mayor of
Yeah.
Sapphire.
The Sapphire Suite, our co-working space.
Yes.
We do this little event on Wednesday mornings called Biz Brews, where we essentially sit around a table and mastermind. And there are ladies that work out of there that are of all levels of income, revenue, success, however you want to measure it. There's somebody brand new to somebody that's been in your business, 30 years, making 7-8 figures, right?
Yeah.
Well, one day, one of the ladies was like, "Gosh, you know everyone here. You're like the mayor." And
There
I
you
was like, "Yes, I adopt that title."
You got that. That's your branding right there.
It is. It is. It's
Well,
become part
I
of
will
me.
definitely have to attend one of those in the future. But
Yeah.
I just, and I know, Kev, you want to ask her something, but something that's just keeps coming up in my spirit is this. You're younger than us. For those of you that are hearing this just audibly, come on over to YouTube and you'll see. But I just love it, again, having young adult daughters, seeing an entrepreneur like you.
Yes.
And you didn't conform to the patterns of the world, like, I got to go get a 9 to 5. Can you just take us a little bit deeper on how you were able to do that? Because I know there's a lot of people out there who have a dream, or like this desire, these gifts, these talents. You created an app. Your dad said you could do a website. I want to know a little bit about your Conquer story, and also the reality of maybe some hard parts of it, but something that pivoted you to where you are now.
Sure. Okay. I love this question. You guys ask the best questions. Okay, so the hardest part of my story, I'll start maybe there. I don't know. Okay. We're gonna go with it. Yeah. So in high school, like every other high schooler, it was time to decide what I was gonna do for college, right? And now I did not attend a traditional high school. I realized in about the 5th grade that I was no longer interested in public school, was not keeping my attention anymore. And luckily, I was blessed enough that my parents were able to make the shift to a private Christian school that was an alternative learning method. And I think that's like kind of phase 1 of what empowered me to not take the traditional route, but there's a lot more coming. So, yeah, came high school time. What are you going to do with yourself? I was like, well, I know I'm not going to work a full-time job, so better figure that one out. And
Smart girl.
yeah, I was like, them,
Nope.
not me. Thank you anyway. So I was like, well, I hate math. So I went to my academic dean and I was like, what business degree could I get that requires the least amount of math possible? And she was like, oh, business administration. And I was like, I guess I'm a business admin major. Not one more minute was ever. I never thought about it another second.
Can I just interject and say I'm tracking?
Right. So yeah, she was like, okay, that was the easiest conversation ever. I was like, awesome, I'm gonna go home now. So anyway, I fully went into school having no concept of what I wanted to do. Right. Nothing at all. But I did know that I was going to have a business. I just didn't know what it was going to be. There's a lot of other facets. I was an insurance agent. I understood sales. Both my parents are entrepreneurial and sales oriented. My dad's been on commission only sales most of my life. That prepares you for a wild ride too. You know, when you live commission only, you're like, your life is like, woo, you know. Sometimes you're like rich, and then you're like, yeah, ramen for dinner.
That's right.
So I think that was part of my preparation too. But this is the part I think you guys will enjoy, and this is the toughest part. I don't think I knew it was tough in the moment, but I can go back and go like, man, you really like did something there. So in high school and prior, I really didn't have a whole lot of friends. My school was already tiny as is. There were 22 students in my graduating class, and I just didn't really have any friendships with them. I mean, light friendships, but not to the degree that most young girls are used to. I wasn't hanging out with them on the weekends or the evenings. It was just an at school thing, and we really didn't go to school full time. So all I have to say, I wasn't really sad for myself, but I will throw my mom under the bus a little bit. She always was pointing out that I needed more friends, and I was like, I'm pretty happy, but whatever. Anyway, all that to say, I was a really, really shy kid. Really shy. And that is my true nature. Yeah, you guys are like, shy, not you.
I'll say, wait a minute.
Yeah. But that is my true actual nature. I just realized in that moment when I talked about the business admin thing, like if I want to make money, I'm going to have to figure out how to be a salesperson. Number one, that was all I knew from how I grew up. But number two, I was like, I don't want to work a traditional job. And the only other thing I knew was sales. So literally towards the end of high school, we had to do I had to write a 40-page paper and defend it in front of a panel of academic judges. And after that, I got this like syndrome in my head where it's like, well, if you can do it, so can I. And that drives me, right? Like that is the thing that drives me. I'm like, if they can figure it out, me too.
That's right.
All that to say, once I did that, it was just like, okay, now it's time to figure out what the sales world looks like. And honestly, craft a personality that people are interested in talking to. Because prior to that, I was definitely the person that no one was talking to in the party. And I say that to like encourage anyone listening who feels like they're a wallflower. You're not. You just have to let yourself open up a little bit. Like it doesn't mean that I changed my personality. It doesn't mean that any part of me is fabricated. It just means that I was able to open up a different side of myself. But I had to work at it. It didn't just happen overnight. And that's why I say like kind of craft a personality is like I had to put effort into it. I had to think about what things made me unique instead of when somebody says, how was your weekend? Say, oh, it was fine. It would be like, oh my gosh, my dad made a seafood boil and it was the best meal I've had in 6 months. Like those are the ways you have to really become a personality. And to me, I'm thankful for that I went through that, but I'm also thankful that it really forced me to figure out how to develop my personal brand, which is another reason that kind of like ties back into what I do, I feel like.
That's wow. Okay, first of all, I would have never guessed that. Ever, ever, ever. Secondly, it is an inspiration for people because you can become whoever you want to be. And like you said, you
Right.
didn't change your personality. You became more of what was already inside of you and sharpen those skills. And and then I'm gonna say this. I've been doing half this podcast with a mascara, speaking of makeup from the beginning, literally dripping. But you know what? The show goes on. So
Let's
I just
go.
looked and I was like, what is happening right now? So, y'all, we said at the beginning of this, we're going to keep this real and raw, and we are. I had this, I didn't have the full screen in front of me, but back to what you were saying, I think that the, that is your conquer story, but we're all in the middle of a conquer story. And we always say
Right.
we're more than conquerors in Christ. I mean, you're doing the thing, and your personality, having no friends, that totally shocks me, but it was preparing you to have this where you are an entrepreneur. You were a leader. You were, not a follower. And it's funny you have the flowers on your wall. You would never think that you were a wallflower, but like you said, it's just learning the skills, and this sort of thing. We say the skills that pay the bills and then some. And that's what you've learned. So thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
conquer pivot story.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I always tell people like you got to choose your version of hard, which is
Yeah.
not unique to me, but I just chose my version of hard. It was either talk to people and figure out how to sell something or what, sit at a cubicle and be sad in a beige office. Nope, not me. I could never.
It's so, oh my gosh, we are the same people. I remember when I worked in a cube and I thought, I'm about to go crazy. This is not my thing. And it's so beautiful. We live in a time where more than ever, where your creativity, man, you have somebody like McKenna's expertise to extract who you are, what you do, your brand, your colors, your pictures, all those things can launch a company to another level.
Yeah, it really can make all the difference in the world, and even again, just for you personally too. But yeah, I just it's been fun to go through the transformation. Even someone yesterday who met me towards the beginning of my business journey was
Mm.
like, well, she used to sit in the back room and look at her phone, and now she runs the group, So
Uh-huh.
it's very cool to be able to experience that in real
Oh,
time and with
yeah.
people who I know still today. But yeah, it's fun.
So cool.
Right, right. Well, McKenna, so need some coaching here. So a lot of entrepreneurs, they feel like they're not ready to invest in themselves, or they're never ready for their branding, or as you mentioned earlier, professional photos or high quality website. What would you say to that entrepreneur who thinks they need to wait before
Mm.
creating a strong brand presence? What do you have for them with regards to them wanting to stay on the wall or stay in the background and not just go for it?
Yeah, another fabulous question. So totally understand when people are at a point where they're like, I'm not ready to invest. And I think that there are certain situations, certain designers that you can work with that are not me. Just kidding. But I do think like for me, what I kind of tell my clients or my prospective clients in that situation is the branding process really helps you dial in on some major breakthroughs. Like even when I think somebody has it all together, they go through the questionnaire and they're like, "Wait a minute." Um, for example, one of my good friends, one of my really good friends, who I talk to on Voxer pretty much every single day of my life. She and I have been workshopping her business, trying to figure out different ways to make it work. She is a mom of 4, and she has limited hours to work her business, right? After years of us talking about it, she fills out the questionnaire because she decides she's finally ready for branding, and she puts in one of the questions. And one of the questions is normally a throwaway question. I just leave it in there just in case it sparks somebody's heart, right?
Mm.
The question is like, where would your clients go if before they would find you? Like, what would they be doing to try to solve their problem before they interact with you? And she said YouTube, and we're both like, hello, you need to be on YouTube. If they're going to go YouTube a tutorial for what you offer, YouTube's the place to be. And so you never know what breakthroughs are going to happen through that process of figuring out your ideal client and figuring out your market position and all that fun stuff. And I really think it can kind of help you skyrocket a lot faster. So that's kind of like thing one. Thing two is just credibility, right? If you can start your business out, even if you don't fully know what you're doing, if you can make the investment to look credible, you can really move the needle. Like, you can move the needle a little bit faster than you would on your own, because people trust credible looking businesses. You might think like your design is fine, right? And that's good. But if it's great, it really takes you to the next level. It really helps you, especially if you're approaching corporate clients or people that have a certain level of expectation. You need to look the part in order to bring in the big bucks. So you might as well just start that way, earn more money, and then be able to reinvest when you actually like know your brand.
Well, McKenna, I think that everything you shared about, what has brought you to where you are now, you're the mayor of your area at Sapphire Suites, and just the expertise that you already have at such a young age, and all that came before you, in the business world, is something that I think will inspire people. Sometimes we hear inspirational stories, but you think, or they think, and I said, even in women and men in their 50s still want to do the thing, or maybe they're pivoting from an old, I always say, what if they climb to the top of the ladder and they really don't like the view because they've been doing it
Mm.
for somebody else for so long? And so I think what's so beautiful about, just like when you were in in the makeup world, you brought out the beauty that's already inside of somebody. Your websites, your branding, that brings out the beauty that's already inside of somebody in the business space. And like you said, it's so important. So your work is about bringing that confidence, and I would say it's swagger, to the brands. Can you share a success story of maybe a business that transformed somebody or somebody's business after working with you?
Ooh, a great question. I'm going to use one that's kind of recent. So we don't know how much she'll be transformed. But it is my dear friend Chelsea McClintock and her business Anywhere Everywhere Travel. So Chelsea and I have been friends since 2021. We met each other online, but she actually lives here locally, and we ended up meeting each other in person in the rain on accident at a Christmas festival. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. But it was like, when I met her in person, it was like we were instant sisters, and we both
Oh,
felt it, and we're both still that way.
oh.
Well, anyway, we worked on her website when we first met. We just kind of did some revisions of a template that she had bought. She was really happy with her branding, all that fun stuff. And then about a year and a half ago, she realized, like, I am not working with my ideal client. I am not finding the people that I want to find me are not finding me. The ones I don't want to find me are finding me. I'm struggling with this. I'm feeling burnt out. She was experiencing kind of all of those things that can be fixed is a word, but maybe not the right word, but solved
Yeah,
maybe by branding, right?
right.
So we kind of started on a journey to figure out who her ideal client is, which she had a really good grip on. It's somebody who is a high net worth individual who wants to go on, dream trips where they're immersed in the culture, and they are world travelers, and their homes are decorated in artisan goods and all these different things, right? So we went from this very neutral brand that really and truly, and she won't be hurt by me saying this, but really and truly looked like every other travel agent out there. They all look very, very, very similar. And we took that and we went the complete opposite route. We tried to make it look like it was like a pamphlet picked up on the floor, on the ground of a pebbled road in Italy. We wanted it to look like the ant that has too many rings on because she just has so many beautiful ones. Like, you can kind of start to paint the picture. We wanted it to look like Lake Como and the Italian Riviera and all that stuff. And so we recently brought that. We spent the entire year, the entire 2024, redoing her branding. We took a couple of breaks just for different things. We redid all of her website copy, and then ultimately we redid the entire website. And we finished that quite a while ago, but she wanted to launch on her birthday, which was January 31st. So in that extra time, we went ahead and built out all of her social media templates, her how we work document, her every little thing you can think of, her highlight covers, her LinkedIn cover, anything that needed to be designed. We redid all of her email templates, all that fun stuff. So she's like completely, fully rebranded. And I just know how much it's going to help her business. Is already one of the biggest clients of all time has already landed in her inbox, so that she can, really impress them. Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm super excited for her. Yeah. And so it just really helps people like get confident in their own stuff, but also the people that you want to find you will find you and connect with it. Right.
It's so important. That's why branding is so important. And if we would have known about your friend before now, we are actually, I don't know when this will air, but we are getting ready to go to Italy, Florence, Italy. Our youngest daughter's studying abroad. And so we're taking that trip, and we were kind of like last minute, sort of thing. And we did find somebody, but I am excited for your friend who is also your client, because if people don't have that vision, that's where you come in and help them capture the vision. And we know that is a biblical principle. Or,
Yeah.
if you're not a believer or faith minded, like the universe, that is a principle to have the vision. And that brings in, as what we teach and we've learned from our mentors, you can bring in cheapo people who are going to pay cheap dollar, or free people who are going to be wanting everything for free, or you have a brand that partners with you and you have people. You will attract premium people with your premium branding. It's just how it works.
It's funny that you say that, because I think we oftentimes get in our confidence gets in our way, right? Where we're like, well, I'm not good enough to have big clients, so why am I good enough to have not good enough to have a big brand, right? And so I think that's like a good mindset to get rid of, because ultimately, like, you can really do something with that,
That's
you
right.
can really
And
build your confidence.
it is a mindset. You are exactly right. Well, we have a couple more questions before we wrap up
Sounds good.
this morning, this afternoon, whatever time you're listening to this podcast. Kev, I know you wanted to ask her one more question. Oh, Kev, we we do not hear you. Your mic is off. Let me clip that again.
Clip it.
All right. So I know that everything that you said about your friend McKenna, it's so incredibly important. And like we talked about, the free people, the cheapo people, and premium people is so important with your branding. And Kev, I know we have a couple more questions. We're going to wrap this up here pretty soon. Kev, you wanted to ask her one more question.
I do, for me and for all of our listeners. So, McKenna, we know you offer amazing brand and website design services that help entrepreneurs bring their vision to life. What sets your approach apart? And most importantly, how can our listeners work with you?
Oh, what sets my approach apart? I love that. Well, if you would love to work with me, I would love to work with you. You can reach me at my website, McKennaDelaney.com, or McKenna_Delaney on Instagram. And what sets me apart is my approach with strategy. Like, we really go deep on that and figure out who your ideal client is. I always tell people I am your ideal client's advocate. They can't be here during this process, so I will promise to try to protect that, because there are a lot of things that come up in the brand and website design process like we just kind of touched on it a minute ago, insecurity can be one of them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We try to self-sabotage, or we try to not get it done so that we don't have to launch it. I mean, there are a lot of heavy things that come up in this process. And so I really kind of consider myself your biz bestie who's going to help you get over the hump of that and get something amazing launched, something beautiful that is really going to speak to your ideal client. But also, if you are iffy on your ideal client and you're like, I just need something beautiful, that's okay too. We can figure it out together and work with what you need to work with. We need to build a business you need today, not the one that you might have in 10 years if you don't do something with it, you know?
Oh, it's so true. It's so true, McKenna. And so before we wrap up, we'd like to ask different questions. And one of the things we want to ask you, and all that information that you just shared, if you want to work with McKenna, it will be in our show notes. So you can click on that and don't wait. You know, it's always the start that stops people. And when you have somebody alongside of you in that starting process, wanting premium clients because you are a premium person, there's one thing so that's all in the show notes. And what would you say as we wrap up this episode? What would you say is a one powerful piece of advice to an entrepreneur who, like I said, it's the start that's stopping them, that you would give to them who's ready to either start their brand or elevate their brand? What would one piece of advice be for our listeners?
Yeah, if you're looking to start your brand and you haven't really done much of anything yet, I highly recommend getting on with an expert. I'd love that to be me. If it's not me, that's okay. But I think just having expert eyes on it, the piece of advice I want to give you is you are too in it to know what's right or wrong. Right? I had my brand and website designed. I mean, I had a pretty heavy hand in my website, but my brand, I was hands off. I said, here's what I need, and we figured it out from there. Of course, I gave feedback and creative direction and all that, but ultimately I knew that I was going to vacillate between two shades of pink for months, and I did. But when I had that realization of like, wait a minute, I don't have to be the one that does this, it opened up a whole world to me of that's true for all of us as business owners. You can't get in Canva and create something that's going to be masterfully done for your business when you're too deep inside of it. You're too in it. You cannot remove yourself far enough away to see the details. So that's the advice that I would give is you need somebody, whether it's me, whether it's someone else, whether it's somebody on the higher end of the price range, whether it's somebody that's $10, you need somebody's help to figure that out. Probably not $10 is not going to get you very far, but it's probably better than you doing it. So not you guys, but the audience.
It's so true. What great, just an inspirational message as a young, I mean, younger than us, let's say, entrepreneur, but you started young. Before we end, can you tell us what age you were when you launched your business?
Yeah. I started this business. I've never actually had a real job. The cosmetics job I was referencing earlier was like a freelance position, so I made up my own hours. I've never had a real job, so my first business started when I was 8 years old. But this business started, yeah, right? A whole different story for you. But this business started 6 years ago in August, so 2019, which would have made me 27.
Wow.
I think. Maybe 26.
Go.
Good for
people.
you, young lady.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
And
I graduated college 6 months before COVID, and I had graduated college 3 months before I started the business. So I had no time at all before the world changed forever.
Yeah.
Well,
that is
I
amazing.
mean, we hear you say the word job, and something we've read again, an incredible book. A job or stands for jump out of bed, and you don't have to jump out of bed because you have to. You jump out of bed because you want to, and that is a beautiful place to live in. So, thank you, McKenna, for just all the good information, and I'm sure people who listen to this are going to reach out to you, and just I know it's a transformational message for the entrepreneurs listening today.
McKenna, thank you so much for being here today on the Conquer Club podcast. So if you want to work with McKenna to design a website and a brand that stands out, connects with your audience, and fuels your business success, check out her website. So if you love this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Share this episode with an entrepreneur who you feel may need to hear this. Follow us on social media for more inspiring interviews and strategies to help you conquer your business and life. Peace in.
Peace out.
Kevin
and Tanya Stout. So how many of you are ready to conquer your business, your income, and your life? Hit subscribe and join the Conquer Club, and let's start winning together.
Peace in.
Peace out.
Kevin and Tanya Stout.